What is up, Guardians? I hope you're all enjoying the Witch Queen. Today I bring you my updated Titan Stasis build, and I can't wait to show you what this build can do. With the launch of Witch Queen, we've had a bunch of new stasis items such as stasis primaries, heavies and exotics. This build will include all of them. Before we get into anything, I just want to make everyone aware all the gameplay on screen was in PsyOps, which had the stasis singe modifier, so keep in mind the damage is boosted. However, you will see with all the mods and damage boosts we're giving ourselves, it will do more than enough damage in activities where Stasis Singe is not active. So let's get straight into the build. First, I'm going to go over the subclass, the fragments and the aspects. So obviously we're running Behemoth Titan, and our aspects are going to be Tectonic Harvest. Shatter in a Stasis Crystal creates a Stasis Shard, and this shard grants melee energy when picked up by you or allies. And Diamond Lance. Shatter or defeat targets with stasis abilities to create a stasis lance. These two pair so well for the build, as we are constantly shattering crystals and freezing enemies. Now because of our aspects we get 5 fragments. I'm using Whisper of Fissures, which increases the damage and the size of the burst when destroying stasis crystals or frozen targets, to help our overall damage and AoE. Whisper of Shards, when shattering a stasis crystal you gain a temporary boost to our grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional crystals increases the duration of this benefit to help with our grenade cooldown. Whisper of Rhyme, collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield which falls off after 10 seconds. Collecting additional shards adds to the overshield and resets the timer to help us deal with overshield or health. Whisper of Chains, while you are near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets to help with resistance. And finally, Whisper of Rending. Kinetic weapons do increased damage to stasis crystals, and frozen targets to help with our damage output. That's the subclass summed up. Moving on to mods, on our helmet we have double ashes to assets to help our super cooldown, and also Font of Might, which can be picked up from the artifact for just 1 energy cost this season. This helps us boost our damage. On our gauntlets we have Bolster and Detonation to help with class ability energy, and High Energy Fire to once again increase damage. Now, in the PsyOps I was running, I had Unstoppable and Barrier champions to deal with. So I have Unstoppable Pulse and Anti-Barrier Scout Rifle on. However, you can obviously rotate these to whatever champions you have to deal with. I am also using the Artifice Gauntlets from the dungeon to be able to do this. If you don't have them, don't worry about Bolster and Detonation. It isn't a must-have, it just helps with cooldowns. For our chest, we are going to use the Hoarfrost Z exotic chest armor, taking advantage of its perk Glacial Fortification. When using the stasis subclass, your barricade becomes a wall of stasis crystals that slows nearby targets. Standing behind this barricade will grant you and your allies increased weapon reload speed, stability and range. And for our mods, we're using double thermo shock plating to help with resistance from solar and arc, which can be picked up from the artifact for 2 energy and can stack. And our other mod is elemental time dilation, to increase the time Font of Might is active to make our damage increase more consistent. On our boots we have insulation to get us class ability cooldown, we have better already to help health regen, and elemental charge to make us charged with life. I also use rocket launcher scavenger on my artifice boot, but again this can be left off if you don't have the artifice gear. My Titan Mark we have distribution to help with ability cooldowns, utility kickstart to help with our class ability cooldown, but the main thing on our class item that is going to make a significant difference is elemental shards, which make stasis shards count as wells. Now remember, stasis shards are made every time we destroy a stasis crystal, so whenever we're using our grenade or barricade we're generating these, as we will be shattering them to deal damage. Now finally, for all gear pieces, what do you want to focus into? The must-haves are resilience and discipline for barricade and grenade energy, so that we can pretty much have them on demand. I had mine at 80 and 97, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now for our weapons. Due to Witch Queen releasing so many new stasis weapons, you have a big variety to choose from, but I will first comment on what I used. As my primary, I used the new Syncopation Pulse Rifle to make the most out of Whisper and Rending. As well, I needed Unstoppable, and I was leveling the weapon up at the time. I haven't yet got enhanced traits, so this build can still be improved. As my secondary, I used the new Pointed Inquiry Scout Rifle to help deal with barrier champions. However, this could be where you use an exotic or anything really. I only ever use my secondary to deal with champions. and my heavy was the new Stasis rocket launcher to deal insane amounts of damage. Now as I said, you have a selection of weapons you could use, and I'm doing enough damage with this build to a point where I'm not even using an Exile. My other mentions would be the Forensic Nightmare Stasis SMG for Everloads if you had to deal with them. The Exotic Trace Rifle, Aegis Scepter, would be ridiculous as it recently got the 40% damage buff to red bars. The Crate Assault Rifle, again for Everload. The AS Luna, from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon. And finally the Persis Beast Scout Rifle. However, I really dislike this gun, but if it works for you, make the most of it. As for secondaries, anything that is a backup or for champions will work. Like I said, I didn't really use my secondary other than champions. And finally heavies, if you don't like the rocket launcher, you could use the new recurrent impact machine gun, the Reed's Regret or Reed's Regret Adept if you have it. Do not sleep on this gun now that particle deconstruction has gone. The stacks of damage this weapon can still do is insane, and I imagine that the new Parasite exotic could work perfectly if you save up 20 stacks. Even though it isn't stasis, the damage output is insane and it would still get the benefit from high energy fire. And that's it guys, that's all the mentions I can think of. I'm sure there are others, but these are the weapons that work best for me. One quick thing, after some messing around with this build, I tried using other weapons I was deep sighting. I ended up using a Survivor's Epitaph hand cannon with osmosis, and I've got to say, as long as I didn't stow the weapon, it works surprisingly well. So if you can get any decent weapons with osmosis, try it out, see what you think. You're always spamming grenades, and it will get the benefit of Font of Might and Whisper of Rending, as well as high energy fire, so you're still getting all the damage boosts. So finally, how does everything go together? To use this build effectively, you want to use the grenade to freeze enemies and shatter the crystals. This will then drop stasis shards, which are going to act as wells due to elemental shards. This will set off elemental charge, making us charged with light times 2, and it will proc Font of Might, making us able to deal bonus damage with stasis weapons. Since Font of Might is active, elemental time dilation will trigger, meaning Font of Might lasts longer, so we can have a longer damage boost. And since we are charged with light, we have high energy fire active, which is boosting our damage until we get a kill. We'll constantly have both high energy fire and Font of Might active, increasing our damage pretty much all the time if we're using the build correctly. Finally, the melee and barricade. I only really use my melee and low tier enemies or my crystals if my primary is low on ammo. And as for the barricade, you're pretty much using it as a grenade. However, you're going to need to get close to enemies when casting to freeze them, and to proc distribution to help ability cooldowns. Constant grenade kills will regen our barricade and super energy thanks to bolster and detonation and ashes to assets. You will very rarely be shooting enemies other than high tier enemies because you'll be breaking crystals to kill everything. All in all, this is a really fun build. The barricade placements would be risky, but due to Whisper of Chains and Whisper of Rhyme with our damage reduction and overshields, we're able to place and kill and restore health before usually losing an overshield. To really perfect this build, I would advise getting Enhanced Headstone and Enhanced Outlaw on Syncopation, as it makes things way more efficient. I would also advise getting Enhanced Auto Loading and Enhanced Adrenaline Junkie on the rocket launcher. And again, even though secondary isn't common use, Enhanced Adaptive Munitions would be a big help. But yeah guys, that's it for the video. I'll leave you with some gameplay. The Destiny Item Manager link should be in the description. If you enjoyed the video or it helped you out at all, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one, Guardians.
Hive are just as unafraid of death as they were before. They know we can destroy their ghosts, and yet they just keep coming.
Belief is a power. Belief in a cause, in a leader, in a people. Belief can make any sacrifice palatable.
Is that why so many of your Cabal are willing to sacrifice themselves for your ideals? Because they believe in you?
Yes. Just as you were willing to sacrifice yourself for Commander Zavala.